Hey, hello, it's Chris from Mithral Brews, and we have some exciting news. I have reached over 50 subscribers, and that to me is a big deal. I set out to do this channel as a way to really help users experience Foundry at its core in a positive way. I see a lot of people posting on Reddit, sometimes on the Foundry Discord, that just seem to struggle with some of the way things are explained, whether it be in some other creators' videos or from the D&D wiki page on how to create things. So I decided to make this channel so that it could help people out with a little more simplified instruction is what I would call it. Thank you to everyone that has subscribed and anyone that has viewed my videos. I really appreciate that, and I hope that it's working for you and helping you out. I do appreciate those that have left comments that said how this has worked, even those that have said that they've used Foundry for a while and they feel pretty comfortable with it, but I was able to show them and explain some things that help them out, and that's important to me. A few videos ago, I did how to make a subclass doing the College of the Moon Bard. I do believe that was from one of the Unearthed Arcana articles on D&D Beyond. So one of you left this comment: can you make the Necromancer? And let's take a look if we could do the Necromancer. Now, I've already built everything, so you don't have to go through and watch me do the cutting and pasting and then go through the difficulties of creating it. I've already created it, so what I'm going to do is walk through each of the things that I did, and then at the end we will test it on one of our actors here. So let's quick switch over to the guide on the Unearthed Arcana. This came out sometime in 2025, a couple months ago, or September-ish. Mid-September-ish is when this came out. It's part of the Arcana 2025 Arcana update. So part of the updates for subclasses for different classes, but just more focused on the arcane. So it had the arcane archer, it had the tattooed warrior monk, the conjuration wizard, enchanter wizard, and then the necromancer. And then I think, transmuter's also in there too. So a lot of the wizard subclasses, more than anything. As we know, there are multiple wizard schools, so there's obviously a different subclass for each schools. Let's take a look at the necromancer here for this Unearthed Arcana. And this is what we're going to build. So let's read this here real quick. You explore the cosmic forces of life, death, and undeath. As a necromancer, you learn to manipulate the energy that animates all creatures. As you progress, you learn to use magic to drain the life force from a creature and transform its vital energy into magical power. Many see necromancers as menacing or villainous, though not all necromancers are evil. Nevertheless, the manipulation of life and death is considered taboo in many societies. As with most subclasses, the first level 3 feature is called Necromancy Savant. It gives the Necromancer 2 level 2 or lower, so level 1 or 2 spells into your spellbook for free, and then each time when they gain a spell level, they can get a new free spell. So that means at 5th level, 7th level, 11th, and so forth, they get one extra spell. Then they have this thing called Necromancy Spellbook, which basically gives them resistance. It allows them to heal one of their undead, and then it allows them to use to summon skeletons or zombies as part of their, rather than just some other familiar. So it adds those two options to summon. At level 6, you have Grave Power, which gives you an exhaustion level, reduces your exhaustion level when you use Arcane Recovery. This was kind of a weird thing because nowhere in this subclass does it talk about creating exhaustion on the Necromancer. So I'm not sure what the point of this. I mean, exhaustion is not that common in the game. I mean, it can be. But it just, I can tell you, my players don't ever really allow their characters to get exhaustion. They will go through all links and troubles to literally remove exhaustion if it means giving up a whole quest. Sometimes they will try to remove debuffs pretty quickly. And then damage from your wizard's and spells and wizard features ignores resistance to necrotic damage. This is another thing that I found is just impossible with Foundry, so it's just something you're going to have to tell your DM that your spell overcomes any of their resistance should that happen, or your DM should know that. You just have to accept there are some things that Foundry cannot automate. Even I don't even know if you could automate this with a module. Probably could, but for the most part, at its core and the way I set things up, you cannot automate everything. And so these are a couple things that just can't be automated. I'll explain it when I test everything. Then you have Undead Thralls, which gives you the animate dead spell. It also then when you animate dead or you summon or create undead through other spells, then it will basically buff your undead. And then Undead Harvest allows you to use your undead to gain hit points for yourself. And then Death Masters is another way to bolster your undead, to buff them, or to use them in their dying state as they hit 0 to do damage to others around them. So these are the features. So we're going to have to jump into Foundry here to go through how I set those up. Now, quickly review the one thing that I always do with Foundry, and if you've watched my videos, you know this, is I have a clean world, essentially, that is free from any of my campaigns or adventures. My players don't have access to this world. This is just for me to create content so that it doesn't impact any of my game worlds. But I use a module that I created called Homebrews, or D&D Brews, I do believe I called it. And then within there are compendiums. I have 2 compendium folder packs that have different compendiums that I share. So once I create this, it automatically will show up in any world that I have shared this or installed this module on, and those compendiums will be shared between the 2 worlds. So I like building everything here and then putting it in my compendiums, and then my players can then have access to it in our game world rather than building it in the game world. This also means that if I create new worlds for new campaigns or new players, I don't have to constantly be changing things. I have everything that I've already created and only have to create it once. So let's get into actually making the subclass. So the first things you want to do is make sure you set up your, again, this compendium. So I set up compendium, and I set up the features first. So we just went over the 6 features. So there's the 6 features, starting with the level 3 features: Necromancy Savant, Necromancy Spellbook, then Grave Power and Undead Thralls, followed up by Harvest Undead, and last is the Death Master. If I know there are 6 features, I will just make 6 features quick, and then I will go in, cut and paste all the dialogue into, let's show you here, I'll cut and paste the description into each of the features. I usually then will add the icon if I'm doing that, and then I'll change the name, and that's where I'll start. And so I'll get all 6 of those set up. Then I'll go into editing them individually. So let's take a look at the Necromancy Savant. So these are going to be the level 3 features that the Necromancer gets, and we'll go through those. So of course, what I did is I added the description here, and then where it says Necromancy School, I linked it to the Player's Handbook spell list. I do believe that's the Player's Handbook spell list. Yeah, Player's Handbook spell list. And from here, I even copied the Evoker setup from the Player's Handbook to set this up, and this is exactly how they have that set up. So it tells you to filter by school, and then go down to necromancy, and there's all the list of spells that the player can choose. The only downside is it doesn't show you the spell levels without you clicking over it. Of course, maybe you already know that. You can filter differently if you wanted to go by level, but then you don't see which spells are from that spell list, so it's hard to tell. What I did instead is I created an advancement, and I will show you that in a second, but first let's go to details. We added as a class feature, we set required level 3. There are no activities, there are no effects associated with this feature. There is just the advancement. Now, the advancement is something that I've done that I do not see being done on the other subclasses under the player's handbook or the modern content. I think this is maybe something they'll update. They just updated player's handbook, and I think maybe they'll add this going forward. But how this works is essentially when you get this feature added to your character sheet through the advancements, then this will kick in this advancement. And then as you level up, it'll kick in each of the advancements. And what I did is I created the level 3 advancement by choosing the choose items option. So I'll go ahead and do this for now. So as you see here, it's not set for any level. And then I put in the name, necromancy spells. And then I choose how many they get at which level. So, of course, right away at 3rd level, you can choose 2. And then I dragged each of the second and first level spells over here. I would also remove the allow drops, because right now the player's handbook is the only location to get these necromancy spells. Should another 2024 resource come out that has more necromancy spells, then I might allow drops. I might go through and change that into allow drops. But for now, this is how I set it up. So I'm going to get rid of that that was just to show you guys. Let's take a look at this one. As you see here, there are 4 necromancy 2nd and 1st level spells that you can choose as you hover over. So 1, 2 1st level and 2 2nd level spells. So at 3rd level, when you get this, you can choose 2 of those. What I did to create all these other ones is I just clicked to the ellipses here. Then I said duplicate the advancement, and then under the advancement, all I did is remove the 2 here and switch it to 1, and then added the 3rd level spells that you can choose. To do that, the easiest way is to open the compendium browser, filter to your necromancy wizard, and then type in 3rd level to 3rd level. And so these are the 3rd level necromancy spells that I could add to the list. Now, the one downside to this is it's going to keep growing. So you just keep duplicating each one at a time. So I then duplicated the 5th level one and then added the new spells, moved this 1 down to the 7. So if I open this one up, you'll see that it's now here. Then I added the 4th level necromancy spells that you can choose, and so on and so forth. When you go through the advancement, when you get the 3rd level, right? You get the 3rd level advancement, you will be able to choose 2 spells, and it'll just have those 4 spells. When you get the 5th level advancement, you will see that there are the 4th or the 2nd and 3rd level spells, or 2nd and 1st level spells, and the 3rd level spells. It does not, block the player from selecting the same spell again. So they'll have to understand that they need to choose a new spell. But you want to make sure that they have the options to still take some of those other spells, because of course they might not have them in their spell book, and they might get to choose those at a later option. So for instance, at 9th level, you get to choose 5th level spells, but there's not any fifth level necromancy spells. So they would still have the same options as spells. They can go back and choose one of the first level spells that they didn't choose at third level. So hopefully that makes sense. That seems like a lot of using the word level in that, but that's how that's set up. Next, we did the Necromancy Spellbook. The Necromancy Spellbook has a few features. So first, you get resistance to necrotic damage. How we set that up is we just set up a effect. So when this gets applied to the actor, then this effect will kick in. And it is this is systems.traits.value. We add necrotic. That's all we have to do. We don't have to worry about details or duration. It's just a passive effect that is applied to the character. Then the Grim Harvest. You can cast a necromancy spell using a spell slot, or when you cast a necromancy spell using a spell slot, you can choose an undead creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself, and they can regain the number of hit points equal to the level of the spell slot expended plus your wizard level. So you're essentially healing the undead. So let's step through this. So of course we added the type class feature, required level 3, and then we created a heal activity. So if you click this plus button, you will get the heal activity. You can name it here and then click the heal activity and create the activity. When I created the activity, I went to activation. This is a special activation cost because it's when you cast a necromancy spell using a spell slot, so it happens instantaneously. There is nothing that it can consume, but you have to set up scaling. And the reason why you got to set up scaling is because Foundry doesn't have a way for it to know what spell slot you selected to scale this feature, essentially. So you're going to have to manually scale the feature. And then target, of course, 60 feet away, one creature. And then its effect, what it does is it gives you 1 plus the class wizard levels. So this needs to be a formula. And if you're ever wondering, like, what is the formula for this? This is called this is roll data. And if we go here and go to our wiki, and on the wiki you will see this is what's called active effects guide. That is what we're setting up. This is an active effect, and it's basically adding an attribute that you want to add the wizard levels, right? So at classes dot wizard dot levels and roll data. If you want to inspect what is roll data, this is all the roll formulas. So hopefully that helps you understand where I get that from. So one there, and then we're going to scale it. For every level we're going to add an extra dice, so we'll have to test that. That should be set up correctly and as healing, and that's all you need to know, because it says you regain the number of hit points equal to the level of the spell slot expended plus your wizard level. Actually, I might have set that up incorrectly. So real quick, let me... Right, because we have to scale it. It doesn't know what spell slot was used to do that. So that's what the 1, because you're using at least level 1, and then we're going to scale it by 1 dice for every dice we go up. So we'll see. We'll test that. I might not need to have that 1 plus, but we'll see. All right. That is the third level setup. Actually, there's one last part of this, and that is Undead Familiar. The Find Undead Familiar spell appears in your spell book. When you cast a spell, you can choose to do skeleton or zombie. So what we have to do is we do an advancement where we do Undead Familiar. We add that here as a grant item, so you choose grant items. So we call the granted the custom titles Undead Familiar, and then we're just granting the Find Familiar spell. So we're just dragging that into these that spell into here, and then we're saying it's spell casting. It's not prepared. It does not say this is something that's always prepared. It does not have any kind of limited uses. I don't even think you need to set intelligence as the ability because it's just being added to the spellbook to the caster, which of course wizard should be intelligence anyways. That is that effect. But if we go here, we do talk about that we are going to have to make changes to the Find Familiar spell once it's on the character sheet, and this is explaining how to do that. So there's your 3rd level features. 6th level feature starts with Grave Power. And Grave Power doesn't... Again, if we look back at the roll data and the formulas, you can't do some of the things in Foundry to make this work. So you're just going to have to do it manually. So for instance, Grave of Resilience, when you use Arcane Recovery, your exhaustion level, if any, decreases by 1. There's not a way without a macro. So you could write a macro that automatically increases or decreases a token's or an actor's exhaustion level. So if we take our test wizard here that we're going to use when we add this to test everything, you will see on the character sheet these bubbles. These bubbles represent your exhaustion level. What it's saying is that when you use Arcane Recovery, it's going to reduce one of these exhaustion levels. There's not really a way of doing that outside of a macro or just manually adjusting it. So if this wizard had 3rd level exhaustion, used Arcane Recovery, they're just going to manually go in here and reduce the exhaustion level by 1. If you write a macro that allows the player to do that for themselves, or the DM wants to do it, then they could reduce it by 1. You could even, if you have the macro, you can link the macro in the Arcane Recovery so they can hit the button and it will do that. So that's a possibility. There's a couple different ways you can do it, but for right now, I just left it so that it would be done manually. The other option, or the other piece of this feature, is the overwhelming necrosis damage from your necrotic spells, or your wizard spells and wizard features ignores resistance to necrotic damage. There's nothing that you can set up in Foundry without modules that will allow that at its core. So you just need to accept that you're going to have to tell the DM that damage cannot be resisted, and the DM, when they apply damage, will have to remember that in case the creature is resistant to necrotic damage. I think all they will have to do is they'll have to manually reduce the damage. Every once in a while, that's not a problem, so I don't see any need to fight or even bother with... I don't see the real need to use modules to enhance this or make this possible, so I just put here Foundry setup, some notes, so that if a player used this, they would see that these are the things that need to be done to use this feature. The other 6th level feature, we'll just put test with 0 over here, and we'll just reduce the sheet, is Undead Thralls. So the Undead Thralls was a pretty complicated way of setting it up, and this goes into, again, the fact that there are certain rules within the Foundry and the D&D 5e system that it does not allow for roll formulas. It has to either be a number, not a formula, or it does not allow for roll data to be used in creating features. So let's kind of go through this step by step, what I had to do to get it all set up. Of course, as before, the details class feature level 6. I did show that on the Grave Power, but you have to set that up. Then let's go through the activities. So the activities, or let's go through each step actually. So you always have the Animate Dead prepared and cast, and can cast it once without expending a spell slot. Whenever you start casting a spell, you can modify it so that the spell's effective level is increased by 1. The first part of this is pretty much an advancement like we did with the Find Familiar. We created a grant item. I guess we created an advancement that's granting an item. It's granting the Animate Dead spell. Then we're saying that it's the method of using the spells by spellcasting, because it puts it in the spell book. The difference is we're changing this to always prepared because it's saying it's always prepared. Then it's giving it a limited use of 1 for every long rest. So Interestingly, it just says you can cast it once without expending the spell slot. It actually doesn't say it's every long rest. I'm going to set it to long rest because I think that's assumed. But yeah, it's one of the Unearthed Arcana things that I will say. I feel like this specific class in Unearthed Arcana was written by someone that's working on the Magic the Gathering team, and they were asked to help write this up, and it is not written in. This is not the only one. There's other things that it's written that does not appear like normal D&D language. So that's all set up. The part where it says you can modify it so that spells like effective level is increased by 1, that's either going to have to be set up manually within once the spell's attached to the character sheet, you can go in and change that, but it's really the only way to set it up. It also might be something that you just have to imply that you just the character and the DM need to know that spell level is effective by increased by 1. In addition, when you cast necromancy spells using the spell slot, creatures or summons on undead, the undead gains the following benefits. So this would not gain these benefits if you're using the free casting, but if you use the spell slot to animate dead, then the undead would also have undead fortitude and withering strike. Now, this is where it gets complicated because undead fortitude gets an increased maximum and current hit points increased by the number equal to the level the spell slot used plus the intelligence modifier for the duration of the spell. All right, the other part of undead thrall is going to be the undead fortitude and withering strike. These are going to be effects that buff the undead when you summon it or create it. So the challenge here is that it says the undead's hit point maximum and current hit points increased by the number equal to the level the spell slot used plus your intelligence modifier duration. There's not really a way to grab for Foundry to read that it knows that you use this spell slot. If we look over at the wiki and we go to the hit points option at the wiki, so if, let me go back to the top here, active effects, you can find it on the side here, the different active effects, and that goes to the hit points. What we're doing is we're taking the maximum hit points and we're giving it a temporary bonus. So we're just increasing that temporarily on this creature. It does not take the roll data, which means it cannot see that the level of spells. It can't find that information and add that into this effect value. But we can manually do that. So going back, we're going to make an effect, and in that effect, you're going to see that I have essentially. I'm going to remove this one because as I was testing. So starting at level 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So these are the levels of spells. The first spell that you can summon or create an undead is at level 3 for animate dead. So that's the first time that you can create undead is when you get level 3 spells. Thus, that means every time you go up in level or every time you have a higher level spell, of course, you can use those spell levels to create, to cast the enemy dead at a higher value, etc. Plus, there's a few other, like create undead and summon undead. Those are other options that you can create, or it gives you other options to create undead beyond animate dead. This is the way you have it set up. I just created one option, and that's spell level 3. So let's look at the effects. I added, using the wiki, system attributes.hp.temp max. And then I had to manually add the value. And the reason I had to add the value is it's supposed to be level of the spell plus your int modifier. So if this is the character I'm putting it on, once it's on the character, this is when I would do this edit, but by default, I'm just setting it up this way. There's 3 plus the level of spell is 3, so that makes that 6. All right. There's a couple other options here, and that associates with the Withering Strike. So whenever the undead hits a creature with an attack roll, the undead deals extra necrotic damage equal to your intelligence modifier. Again, it's easier to do it this way by just adding the intelligence modifier and then putting the necrotic in brackets here so that it knows that's the type of damage it's doing. Because if it's doing slashing or bludgeoning damage, it still does that damage, but then it also does this additional necrotic damage. And it's looking at the caster's int modifier. So if you were to put the formula in, so it says maximum of 1 necrotic damage. So technically the formula would be, instead of 3, you would put max, then parentheses, and in the parentheses you would put 1 comma, and then you would say at abilities dot int dot mod. And that's how you would set it up. That's the way you would accurately set up the formula so that it reads that. But when it does this, it's looking at the actor this effect is applied to, and so it can't set that up correctly. So we're just going to manually put 3 necrotic, and that's what we're going to go with. And yes, that means every time you build the character or you increase your ability and stuff, you would have to go through and update these, and you're going to have to update it for each one of the effects. But that's the easiest way to do it. Again, I'm sure there are modules that are more dynamic and we'll be able to read that information differently. I think it's called dynamic active effects. If I ever reuse that module and start testing again, maybe I'll add a amendment to this video. So we're gonna leave that for now. The number you put in there, for instance, has to be changed once it's on the character. So having it set up, you put whatever number you want in there for now. And I put in the setup how to set all that up. The other thing is that once you summon or animate the dead or summon the undead or create undead, and you do this undead fortitude, you'll then need to manually update their hit point to the new max. So if it increased it by 6, for instance, you'll have to give the creature 6 hit points manually. I'll show you how that works once we test it. Then the last features are level 10 and level 14. So at level 10, we have Harvest Undead. This is pretty much just a heal for the actor. So once one of their undead go down, or actually once you become bloodied, so once the actor becomes bloodied, then they can take a reaction to reduce one of their undead to 0 hit points. So class feature 10, you can set up the activity. It's a heal activity. So again, this is the heal activity. You can put the name in there and then hit create activity. We click here. We could put in some chat flavor to help with this, but for now we're just changing the time to reaction. There's no consumption, there's no scaling, and then we create the effect, and then it's just doing the at classes.wizard levels because it's just looking the wizard level and does that amount of healing to the wizard. That's it. Harvest Undead's pretty much done. And then our level 14 is Death's Master. With Death's Master, there's 2 features, and one of the features is Bolster Undead. That one's not too difficult, so as a bonus action, you can choose any number of undead that you create or summon with a necromancy spell that are within 60 feet of you. So again, that is just, so class features here, that's just a heal option. So we're changing activation to bonus action. We're not changing anything here. We're just going to the effect, and then we're doing at class levels again because that's all you're doing. And then instead of hit points, you're doing temporary hit points because that's what it says they are called. That's it for there. But the harder one is the Extinguish Undead. So when an undead creature you can see is reduced to 0 hit points, you cause it to explode with necromantic energy. Then the next part says roll a number of d6s equal to half the creature's unexpended hit dice. round up minimum of 1d6 and add them together. All right. So again, I don't know why they do round up. That's not really a D&D thing. Most of the time it's round down, but we'll go with it, round up. But Foundry at its core and the 5e system does not have a way to read a creature's unexpended hit dice, which I don't know why a creature would expend hit dice. And this again leads me to believe this was not written by someone that knows much about the D&D rules. It's possible that some creatures can expend their own hit dice to do some things. I haven't come across any. I think maybe there are some I've maybe heard or on a video or something where creatures can expend their own hit dice to do things. I do believe even in the Princes of the Apocalypse, I want to say when I was doing that, there might be like some of the elementals can expend hit dice to summon other elementals or other elemental type guardians. So I guess it's possible for them to expend hit dice. Very rare, I guess. So it's kind of weird that this feature would be built on something so rare, unless there's something coming that we don't know about that allows monsters to expend more their own hit dice. So you roll the number of d6s equal to that. There's just no way for that to be done in Foundry, so that's going to have to be set up manually. And then each creature within 10-foot emanation originating from the undead makes the dex saving throw, and on the failed save, they can take necrotic damage or half damage. And then they also lose the reaction to start the next turn. So I set up an activity. It's called Extinguish Your Undead. I'm actually going to just make it what it is. It's called Extinguish Undead. And on your activation, you have your time. There's no activation cost to do the Extinguish Undead. But there is a consumption, or there's no consumption, but this is where we're going to scale it. So as we were saying, we can't measure or roll the number of hit dice equal to the creature's unexpended hit dice. There's no way of grabbing that. So you're going to have to just know that, or your DM's going to have to tell you when you do it, how many hit dice you would roll. But the max scaling, it would be 5. And the reason why I set the max scaling as 5 is because I researched all the different spells in which a wizard could cast, but now as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing this might need to be higher. So the max scaling on this is based on what you can summon, which is a mummy. So the highest hit die creature a wizard spell can summon is a mummy using the create undead feature, and then using higher levels. So I think you could create two mummies. So a mummy is a 9 hit die creature. So if we did half of that rounded up, that would be a 5. It could go down to 1, but there's not any undead that has got 1 hit dice. I guess a crawling claw might have 1 hit dice. But you don't have none of the crawling claws, not one of the things that you can summon or create. So you're really the lowest hit die is a skeleton of 3 hit die. So that would be a 2. So it's 2 to 5. But this is only going to be used because we need to be able to increase the damage dice under the effect, and I'll show you that here in a second. But what's got me kind of stumbling here a little bit in my thought is that there is the second part of the feature that says when this creature explodes that you don't control, you must take a reaction, expend a spell slot. That means that you can cause this to happen on creatures that you don't control, and there are a lich, I do believe, has hit dice like 40 some hit dice, so like 42 hit dice, I think. So technically, half of 42 is 21. So your max scaling should be set to 21 um, uh, with this feature. Maybe this is where I would do 2 activities, one for your undead and one for other undead. But for right now, we'll just set it up this way. I'll let you decide if you're going to use this and set it up, how you would set that up. I'm hoping that when this actually comes out in a premium product, I'm interested to seeing how the Foundry team sets it up. But in a premium product, or when the D&D team actually hopefully cleans up this language, it won't be so oddly written and communicated. A little more standard, because that's a wide range between 5 to 21, but it is that's a 14th level. It is capstone for this subclass, the way it's set up. So under the effect, we're setting it up as a challenge abilities, dexterity, spellcasting abilities, the DC. Then we say it can take half damage and it's 1d6, and then it's going to, for every level that we scale, it's going to add another hit die or another dice of damage. The other part then, to set that up, you would use the same activity to do the damage and to create the save, but we needed to consume a 5th level or higher source. So I'm actually just going to change this to other undead, because I might end up doubling this feature, and with that you're going to have 2 options, 2 things you got to set up. Here we're just using the option. We're consuming a reaction. We're going to consume a spell slot. We're going to let it scale up, because that way we can scale and use up higher level spell slots. And then there's no effect. We're not really doing anything. It's just a way to consume the feature. So that is creating each of the features between 3rd, 6th, 10th, and 14th level. So we've created all those. So the second step into creating subclass will be to actually create the subclass. And that you can just click this create item, or create item over here, whichever you choose. You create the item, and then you choose subclass, put the name here. Then it creates this. Of course, I just cut and pasted from the Unearthed Arcana all this information. So if we show that right at the top here, we just cut, no, not the enchanter, we just cut and paste this information over to here and save that. Under details, we change the identifier to Necromancer and the class identifier to Wizard. These are 2 very important pieces. Don't forget this when you're making subclasses, especially this class identifier. I think that gets missed a lot over when I see challenges, or people having challenges on Reddit or the Discord. Then under the advancement, then I had the 6 advancements. I named them subclass feature. All you have to do is click this and do grant items, change the name to subclass features, and then you just drop each of them in here. So you have your 3rd, 6th, 10th, and 14th level. And that's how you make the subclass. That's done. Once you have that set up, you've got all your features and your subclass set up, ready to go. And to test, then you have your test actor. I have it set as a 20th level wizard with +3 modifier. I usually set it this way so that I can test how the features change depending on the core attribute of the main class. If for some reason I want to see it work on another attribute, because maybe the subclass dips into another attribute, then I'll add a bonus to those attributes just so I can see how it impacts it. If we go under features here, we can add that feature now. And because I added the wizard class identifier, so again, this is the important thing. This is what makes it show up in your browser here. I can select it. Now it's going to go through the advancements. So it's saying you get these 2 features. by getting the Necromancy Savant, I'm going to be able to choose these spells. This is given to me at level 3. So let's take False Life and Gentle Repose. And then it's saying you get the part of the Necromancy spellbook, you get Undead Familiar, and then it jumps to level 6. Now you'll notice that it did not give me the option to choose the level 5 when I get a new spell level. It did not do the Necromancy Savant feature. It did not do this at level 5. It will when you are advancing each level at a time. But because I'm just dropping this on a 20th level wizard, it does not give me the option to choose. So I would have to go back and just manually choose them. But I'll show you how it does. I'll make a quick wizard and level them up to 5 to show you that it works correctly. But we've added these features. Then it gives us the Animate Dead. There's the Necromancer. Necromancer. These are just the different subclasses features that it's dropping, and there they all are on the wizard class. They're all down here. So let's go through and test each of them out. So now we're testing them. We're going to start with the Necromancy Savant. So what did the Necromancy Savant? It gave us the 2 spells. So I selected those. They showed up in my my spell list. So there's Gentle Repose and there's the False Life. So that worked correctly. Like I said, it would correctly work if I was leveling up manually. It would do the 5th level, the 7th level, the 9th, the 11th, and so forth. So that's set up correctly. Necromancy Spellbook. It has a couple different options. One, did it give resistance to necrotic damage? Let's go to the main details page, and you'll see there's the resistance to necrotic damage. Necromonic damage, I guess. Necrotic damage. Grim Harvest, when you cast a necromancy spell slot, you can choose the undead creature you see within 60 feet. So if we had an undead creature, let's grab an undead creature here. We'll grab a skeleton, drop it on here. So if I were to target this undead creature and hit the Grim Harvest action here, then I choose the level of the spell at which I casted. So it could either be a level 1 spell or up to level 9th spell. Spell slot, I guess it's not the spell, it's the spell slot. So it could cast a level 9 Gentle Repose if it has the option to increase, I guess. Probably doesn't. False Life can be, so False Life, it can be cast at 1st level all the way up to 9th level. So if I were to cast that spell, again, you would cast a spell and then you would do this Grim Harvest feature because it can't read that you cast the 9th level spell. But if I did that and this skeleton had, let's do 5 points of damage, and I cast a 5th level spell, and I use that ability. Let's see. It's saying it's doing 1 plus 20. It is not adjusting correctly. So I was wondering if that would work correctly. So that is not proper, because I do believe it should be doing gain number of hit points equal to the level of the spell slot expended plus. So it should have done 25 hit points. So we'll have to go back and fix that. But we'll come back to it. So Find Familiar, it dropped the Find Familiar spell into my spell book. Now we need to change the Find Familiar spell. So we're going to edit the Find Familiar spell. We're going to go under Activities, and we have a summon. Now this summon, the way it's set up, it's going to summon creatures based on a CR range. I need to do a skeleton or a zombie. You want to do it by direct link. The changes are all the same here, so it's going to match the spellcasting ability. It's going to be a celestial fiend, so none of that changes. So we're going to just duplicate this, and we're going to edit this, and we're going to rename it to summon skeleton or a zombie. And then we're going to change the summoning here. We're going to get rid of the one that's here, and we're going to add direct link. And then all you have to do is drag a skeleton or a zombie in there. And so we'll just grab it from the compendium. Don't do it from the world. Do it from the compendium. It'll drop the actor into the world, but that way you don't have to have the actor into the world until the player's ready to bring the actor into the world. So I'm going to go to Monster Manual. You could use the modern content. I think the player's handbook actually has zombies and skeletons in it too. And we're going to grab undead, and we're just going to drag skeleton. And then we're going to add another one, and then we're going to drag zombie to it. So you can choose either skeleton or zombie. We're not changing this settings here because there's no level limits. The changes should stay the same because we did just a copy of the other summon, and everything else is set up correctly. So to make sure that works, we're going to click here. We're going to summon a skeleton or a zombie. We're going to cast at level 1. We're going to consume a spell slot. We're going to place the summon, and we're going to choose a zombie, and we're going to make it a phase zombie. We're going to cast a spell. It's going to grab the zombie, and then I can put it on the token on the canvas. So that works correctly. The zombie is my summon zombie. Everything stays the same here, and we are good to go when it comes to the Find Familiar. Okay, so jumping back in here, I was able to get it to work. So to show you what I did differently, First, let's show that it works. So if you were using a level 1 spell, you would do scaling as 1. And there's your 20 plus 1. So because it does wizard level plus level of spell use, so it would do a 21 point of healing to the skeleton. If I did it again and used the level 2 spell, then it does 20 plus 1 is the first level spell, but I scaled it by 1, so it does 22. To set that up, you're going to, under the Grim Harvest feature, you're going to set the max scaling to 9. That's going to stay the same. The effect, I actually had it set as dice. It should have been a formula. Formula means I'm just adding 1, but it's still 1 plus the classes.wizard.levels, so that's telling you to do the wizard levels. Then it's a minimal 1, and then it's going to scale by 1 every level above that minimal 1. So that's how you set it up to get the right calculation. We already did undead formula. We talked about how to set up the undead here in the Foundry setup, and so that is working correctly. So the level 6 spells starts with the Grave Power setup. Again, there's not much here. This is just more dialogue, nothing you can do to set up. So there's nothing really needed here. We can hit the button and we can hit the feature, I should say, and then the DM, if needed, could see all the description of the feature. Then there's Undead Thralls. So we have Undead Thralls, which gives us the animated dead spell. So we see the animated dead spell here. And then it says you get 1 free casting. So if we click here, you will see this free casting. So you have a summon, and this is a forward activity. So it's saying use this free casting, but do this activity. So we're going to do the free casting. It says here consume this 1 item use, and we're going to place the summons right away. And animate dead means there's a pile of bones or a pile of corpses, and let's animate a skeleton. So we're going to create that spell, and we're going to move this here. And that's it. That's all it would do for that 1 free casting. Now, if I was going to cast it again and use the summon feature, which means I'm going to use a spell slot to do it. So let's place the summons, and we're going to bring a zombie in, and I'm going to cast it here. I'm going to bring this zombie in. let's get rid of this skeleton because we didn't bring this skeleton. This is my zombie familiar, but this is the zombie that I summoned. I do believe these are MCDM tokens, and so they're not part of the player's handbook or any of the 5e stuff, but I think I grabbed those from MCDM and from the folder. So it brought those down, used the spell slot, but because it used the spell slot, if we go to the feature, we're going to add the Undead Fortitude and Withering Strike, and we cast a 3rd level spell. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply to this zombie, we're going to apply the Undead Thrall. And we're going to click on the feature, and then we're going to say that Undead Zombie now has this level 3 Undead Thrall. And if we click on it and double click, you'll see that it increased its hit points by 6 because I technically set it up in the default state to be +6, because assuming that a Necromancer has a +3 to their intelligence, and then it's a 3rd level spell. But the would not always be that way. Of course, it's going to be different for each character, but this does apply that. So we would need to then manually bring the hit points up 6, so we hit +6. And now we have 6 more hit points, and they're at 21 hit points. If we then attack, when the creature attacks, and then let's say that's a hit and it does damage, you're going to see that it's also going to add those 3 necrotic damage that it normally do. So there's the 4 + 1 is 5, then another 3 necrotic. So now it does 8 total damage, 5 bludgeoning, 3 necrotic. So that's set up correctly. That's working as best that it can. Now, if we look at the Animate Dead spell, and they were to, it's easier over here, increase the Animate Dead, you assert and reassert control over 2 additional undead creatures for each spell slot above level 3. So what you would do, I was just looking here, it's still only a zombie and a skeleton at level 3, but when you use level 4, so if I were to go back to the spells here, and I cast Animate Dead, and I summon using a spell slot, and I say I want to use level 4 spell slot, I'm going to consume that slot. I'm going to place the summons. I'm going to bring some skeletons. I'm going to bring the skeleton. It only is going to drop 1. You're just going to have to hit the summon button on the sheet again to bring the second one. So now I'm going to summon 2 skeletons. So now I have 2 skeletons and a zombie. But these also are the thralls, and I cast a 4th level spell to bring those guys in. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my features. I'm going to do the thrall, and now I'm going to select those 2 and apply the thralls to those 2 creatures, and then I'm going to now increase it by 7. I'm going to do +7, so they're at their total hit points that they should be at as new creatures. And you would do that if I did it as a 5th level spell, then I would bring in 4 undead, or no, actually I'm still missing an undead, because I should still be bringing in a third undead, because the undead says add 2 additional, so there should be a 3rd undead. I should have brought that guy in. So another skeleton would come in, and then that one should also have the 4th level effect added to it, where I increase the hit points. And so now I have 3 20 hit point skeletons brought in. Again, I think this was created by someone from Magic the Gathering rather than D&D team, because now I'm just adding tokens to the playing field, which again, that's what a Necromancer does, right? Summoner would probably do something similar. Evoker doesn't do it, destroys all this stuff, but summoners would bring in more tokens as you go. So that is that feature. It works correctly as I have it set up and is intended. Now let's go to the next feature, which is at level 10, is the Harvest Undead. So the Harvest Undead, you've learned more secrets. So immediately after you become bloodied, you aren't outright taken, or if you aren't outright killed, you can use your reaction to reduce the undead under your control. So I could reduce this undead who only has 13 hit points, not this one or these, this 13 hit point undead. Remember this zombie here, this was brought in by Animate, or by Find Familiar, and it is not an undead. It is a fey, celestial, or fiend. All right, so going back to the Graves Power, not the Graves Power, the Harvest Undead. With Harvest Undead, you would then take a skeleton here, this lowly skeleton. I guess, what did I do? How did I bring that skeleton? I use my free casting of Animate Dead, and I didn't get to buff him, but when I'm hurt, I decided to take that buffed undead out. So we're going to take him down, and we're going to heal ourselves, and we're rolling the heal, and that should be 20 because it does is number of hit points equal to your wizard level. So I give myself 20 hit points. That's it. Now we have the last thing, which is Death's Master. With Death's Master, let's bring this guy back up just for the fun of it. If this was all the undead I had summoned at this point, I could use a bonus action to choose any number of undead I have created or summoned with a necromancy spell that are within 60 feet. Those undead each gain temporary hit points equal to your wizard's level. So I can grab all of these, bolster undead. I'm going to hit that button. Now apply. There we go. Now all these. So if I was a 14th level or higher, yeah, you're just adding so many to the field. So now these skeletons have 40 hit points. The zombie has 41 hit points. Even that one that I did not use a spell slot to cast has 33 hit points. We're bringing them up. And then if one of these guys die, I can just extinguish the undead, which all I have to do is roll this button here. Player's Handbook. So they have 2 hit dice, so they would only get 1. I use that ability. And then another creature, then let's say this creature would then make a dex save. If they failed, then they would take the damage, which it was only 1. But if it was, let's say, a mummy that died, then the damage would be 5 hit dice. So then if it's another undead, the reaction is just use a 5th level spell slot. I have 3 remaining. I can use any one of these if I keep scaling all the way up to 9th level, if I had 9th level spells. But then I can use any one of these slots, then do the extinguish undead, and that would work the same. The only difference, as I said, if it was, let's say, a Lich, which has 42 hit dice. Let's take a look at that. I do believe that's what a Lich has. A Lich has, let's bring him into the... A Lich has 42 hit dice. Yeah. So that should scale to 21, I guess, if that is accurate. So again, I'm wondering if it's meant to be hit points, maybe not hit dice, but that might be meant to be hit points, not hit dice. But I can't imagine I do hit points if it's reduced to 0. So hit dice makes the most sense there. So I guess I probably would then duplicate this extinguish undead, create and rename it as extinguish other undead, and then set it so that it could scale up to 21 hit dice, I guess. There we go. That is each of the features all tested. I will show you the advancement of another actor. So let's create another player, another test. Create this actor. We're going to add the wizard spell or wizard class to it. We're going to skip all these advancements. We're not worried about that. All right, so if we level up to level 3, so let's just quickly go through the advancements. Add the subclass, we're going to add Necromancer. Once we hit complete, it's going to bring over those. Then I'm going to choose my 2 spells. And then if I go to level 4, we're just going to skip that. And then level 5 is when you would get 3rd level spells. If I click through this, it's going to bring up, there it is. There. So now it allows me to check 3rd level spells. And because I have False Life, Gentle Repose, I could take them again. I, of course, would want to know that as a player that I already have those. And then at this point, I could choose a different option and select that. And if we go to our spell book, there it is. So, so that works correctly. All right, I hope that helps everybody see how the Necromancer is set up. Necromancer. I go back and forth. I don't know why I say Necromancer. Necromancer. But that is set up. Thanks for the user or the YouTube subscriber asking for this to be set up. Is kind of fun. Really tough, kind of a hard one. But if you have something that you would like to see set up, whether it be a homebrew monster or a magic item or a background or a class or a species, let me know and I'll try to make a video on it. Until then, keep creating, keep doing this on your own. You don't need modules to do everything. I did this without any modules, and I think it turned out all right. Let me know what you think. If maybe there's some things you would do differently, let me know. I'll try them out. But hopefully this all helps you out. Please like and subscribe. Helps me understand if I'm making what kind of videos I should be making. Notice the ones that are more popular tells me that that's the type of videos I should be making more of. I do have some plans for some other really interesting videos as I'm making some changes to my Princess of the Apocalypse adventure module so that I can clean it up because my players are probably going to be jumping back to that as we take a break from the Abomination Vaults. In Pathfinder, I do have some stuff I'm creating. I keep talking about it every couple videos, but I haven't made it very far. As this Night of the Walking Dead, 2nd edition conversion. There's some other things that I'm working on. My own story I'm still writing, and I will start building into Foundry eventually. So until then, keep creating, and may all your brews be tasty. Thank you.